Hi guys, I'm Joanna and today's video is going to be all about gel moisturizers. These types of moisturizers are well loved by those of us with oily and combo skin, but I would argue that if you have a drier skin type, you could still really enjoy these types of moisturizers, particularly in the more humid summer months. So if that sounds interesting, definitely keep watching. Now I have 5 different gel moisturizers to share with you guys today, but before I get into that, I just want to say thank you so much to those of you who have subscribed and continue to watch my videos. If you are new to my channel, I hope you'll hit that subscribe button and like button, and also you can join me on Twitter and Instagram. I have literally 10 followers on Twitter, so if you join me there, I'd really appreciate it. I am still rather new to it, but I've been enjoying the platform and it's a fun way to engage with people, so hopefully I will see you there. Now, if you've watched my skincare videos in the past, you know that I have made a skincare routine video, a morning skincare routine video, and I will link that in a card and also down below. Everything I talk about I'll link down below so you guys can easily find it. But in my morning skincare routine, I used the Aveeno Positively Radiant Daily Moisturizer, which I enjoyed using all through the winter. Now that I've recently run out, I wanted something a little bit more lightweight to use for the summer, and frankly, I've never really tried one of these water gel moisturizers before, and they've been very, very popular for the last few years. In fact, now I think every brand has some variant of this type of moisturizer, so that's why I really wanted to just give these a try and share with you my thoughts. Now, before I get into the actual products, I just want to share a little bit about moisturizing and moisturizers in general. Now, historically, skincare routines have been pretty simple and they involved cleansing and moisturizing, and maybe if you were extra good in the daytime, you'd also have a sunscreen component. Nowadays, we cleanse once and a second time, then we apply some actives and acids and maybe some serums and hydrators, lotions, emulsions, and then maybe, last step we'll do some moisturizers and oils. I mean, the joke about K-beauty routines is that they are 20-step long, arduous journeys. But to be quite honest with you, my routine is not quite that complicated, and neither does yours need to be. But generally speaking, when we talk about moisturizers today, we use that at the end of our routine, whether that is 2 steps or 20 steps. The reason we moisturize is obviously to keep our skin moist, and I know that's one of the most hated words in the world, but yes, it is to keep our skin moist and hydrated. And this is just really critical for overall skin health. In the same way that we want to keep our body hydrated, we want to keep our skin hydrated. And for moisturizers to do this effectively, they typically contain 2 types of ingredients. One is a humectant and one is an occlusive. Now, humectants are basically ingredients that draw and attract water to our skin. And this is what keeps that nice surface layer of hydration. So common ingredients that are found in skincare that are humectants are, first and foremost, glycerin. This is probably one of the most common ingredients. Very popular these days is hyaluronic acid. Then you have some natural ingredients like honey, and then you have maybe some chemical ingredients like propylene glycol or butylene glycol. And there are very, very many different forms of humectants that are available. Now, an occlusive is an ingredient that prevents water from evaporating from our skin, and so we have just applied our humectants and they're doing a good job of drawing the water, and the last thing we want then is for that water to be evaporated away, so we want some sort of occlusive in a moisturizer just to seal that all in. Common forms of occlusives include petroleum jelly or petrolatum. This is probably the best occlusive there is, and in fact you can find this in many, many products, including creme de la mer. The third ingredient in creme de la mer is petrolatum, so yeah, $2 Vaseline is a major component of creme de la mer. Shocking, right? Anyway, moving along, other common forms of occlusives include beeswax, silicones in all forms, some oils are good occlusives but not all, and also squalane, which is a natural oil-like substance that our body produces. So, with humectants and occlusives, it makes sense that these are the 2 primary ingredients that should be present in a moisturizer because you want to draw the water there and then seal it in. Alright, so with that kind of preamble out of the way, let's get into the actual moisturizers. First up is the Hada Labo Skin Plumping Gel Cream. This comes in around $14–15 for this jar, which contains 1.76 ounces, which is over 50 milliliters of product. This is by far the least expensive option that I'm reviewing today, so 10 out of 10 for value. When it comes to ingredients, I'm just going to be looking at my notes here. The Hada Labo, the first handful of ingredients are, first off, water, which is the first ingredient of all of these products. Following that, the next several ingredients are different types of humectants, including urea, glycerin, butylene glycol, and then some different forms of glycols. Rounding out the top 7 is squalane, which is a nice occlusive. So that's kind of the top 7 ingredients. If we go further down the list, we actually see some other really impressive ingredients like hyaluronic acid, ceramides, collagen. In fact, overall, I'm pretty impressed with the ingredients list on this product, particularly given the price point. Notably, there's also no parabens in this, and I do want to say though that, if you aren't into parabens or are afraid of parabens, there are still other forms of preservatives in here which have their own kind of associated potential risks. Again, I say potential because I personally am not that fussed with parabens or other preservatives. Like, maybe I just have too much trust in our FDA. But I just wanted to raise that point out because oftentimes, paraben-free doesn't mean preservative-free, and many preservatives still do have potential risks associated with them. So you should, make sure you educate yourselves on what that really means before you just willy-nilly jump into the paraben-free bandwagon. I actually have a whole video on parabens, which I will again link down below and whatnot. But as far as this Hada Labo product goes, I'm pretty impressed with the ingredients list, so 8 out of 10. Now when it comes to the sensory experience, I do want to first say that all these products are very similar in the application. There are subtle differences which I am going to describe and explain to you. Also, all of these products come in a jar package, which is not my preferred form of packaging. Jars are, definitely the least favorable in terms of longevity of the ingredients and also in terms of hygiene for the product itself. But unfortunately, when it comes to moisturizers, it seems like companies just prefer to do them in jars. Okay, so with the Hada Labo, first of all, I'm not too impressed with this packaging. It looks kind of retro and 90s, this little square-ish container. Also, the text on this jar just, I don't know, it just doesn't appeal to me at all. The logo design, I mean, Johnny Ive, hello, I know you're probably too busy with Apple, but maybe help Hada Labo out a bit. Now, this jar did contain a second protective layer, which is nice to have. And as for the actual water gel cream in here, visually this is the most translucent of the gel creams. It also has a bit more of a jelly look than all of the others, and that's probably because there's agar in this formula. Scent-wise, there's really no smell at all. It is fragrance-free, and as far as how this feels going on the skin, it's absorbed fairly quickly, but leaves an ever slight filmy feel. Honestly though, the application experience, like I said, they're all very similar, so we're talking about very minimal differences though, but I would say of all of the products, the Hada Labo is slightly more greasy and dries with a slight bit of tackiness. So because of the jar and the unattractive packaging and the slight feeling of greasiness, I'm going to give this a 5 out of 10 on the sensory experience. Okay, lastly, on moisturizing experience, honestly I have no complaints. This did exactly what I wanted it to do for a lightweight summer moisturizer. And yeah, it kept my skin nice and plump for the day. So summing all that up, we get to 33 points for Hada Labo. Next up, we have the Neutrogena Hydroboost Gel Cream. So again, there is a water gel version of this, but I have the gel cream. Now, value-wise, this comes in around $16 to $20 depending on where you buy it. And the quantity that's in this package is 1.7 ounces, so just a little bit less than what's in the Hada Labo, but really, roughly speaking, that's about 50 milliliters. So score on value will be a 9 out of 10. On to the ingredients, again, consulting my notes. The first one again is water, followed immediately by dimethicone, which as mentioned is a silicone and an occlusive. Then we have glycerin, which is a humectant. Following that, we have cetyl olivate, and skipping ahead one ingredient, we also have sorbitan olivate, which are commonly seen together, and they're derivatives of olive oil. Next we have polyacrylamide, which is used to thicken and bind the formula. So this pretty much has no skincare value whatsoever. It's just to make the consistency of the formula a little bit more thick. But rounding out the top 7 is actually phenoxyethanol, which I hope I'm pronouncing correctly. All of these chemical names, I'm trying to do my best in pronouncing them, but no guarantees that's the correct pronunciation. Anyhow, I'm really surprised to see this particular ingredient in the top 7 on this list, because phenoxyethanol is actually another one of those alternate preservatives that are used instead of parabens, and this one actually has quite a bit of controversy as well. So once again, I don't personally mind because I trust that our FDA has done a good job of testing and ensuring there is no causal relationship found between any of these ingredients and, harmful things to the body. But I just want to emphasize that paraben-free doesn't mean you are completely out of the black, you're completely out of the woodwork. You still have ingredients like this that are lurking in there. Just because they haven't had the marketing behind them to be like paraben free doesn't mean that they're any better than parabens necessarily. If we look down further on the list, there basically isn't that much more in this formula. There is nothing particularly skin positive, except at the very, very bottom of this list there are a couple of forms of hyaluronic acid. So those are probably very, very small pieces of this formula and probably not really doing a whole lot, but just my thoughts on that. So overall, in this case, I'm going to give this formula a 5 out of 10. Next, onto the sensory experience. Again, we are in a jar. This one does not have a second protective layer as the typical Asian skincare products do, and even that Hada Labo did have. But I do like the look and feel of this jar. It's plastic, but it's got a nice weight and heft to it. And I do like this nice blue and white color combo. The actual water gel cream in here is more white rather than translucent and less jelly-like. There is no fragrance, and as far as the application is concerned, it is very similar to Hada Labo. Arguably, it is just a bit less tacky than the Hada Labo in terms of the finish, but honestly, if I were to do a blind test of these two, it would be very hard to discern which one is which. I would say it's very, very similar to the Hada Labo, but just in a prettier jar in terms of the sensory experience. So I would give this a 6 out of 10. Now finally, when it comes to the moisturizing experience, this is just maybe slightly less hydrating than the Hada Labo. So I am going to give this a 9 out of 10. I mean, it still performed really well as a lightweight moisturizer and just a little bit less. So in total, that takes us to 29 points for the Hydroboost. All right, next up is the Cremorlab Fresh Water Gel. Now, this product was totally new to me, and I've never heard of this Korean brand before. I really just chanced upon it when I was researching water gel creams and what people liked. The downside to that is because it's not as well known here, there are really only a couple of places to buy it as far as I can tell in the US, one of which is Amazon. So that is great. Now moving along to the actual review. When it comes to value for this product, this jar is actually much bigger than all of the other products that I'm looking at today. This is actually 100 milliliters in this jar, which is about 3.38 fluid ounces. So 2 times the size of the Hydroboost and the Hada Labo. When it comes to the price for this 2x the size, this comes to either $38 or $48 depending on where you buy it. On Amazon, this is I think around $38. So if you have that, then you are at a comparable size to the other 2 products, and that's about $19 for 50 milliliters or 1.7 ounces of product, which is great. That is, comparable to the Neutrogena really, and it is, yeah, not bad at all in terms of value, maybe just a little bit more expensive. So for value, I give this an 8 out of 10. Next, when it comes to the ingredients, I actually found this interesting, which on one of the retailers that do sell this, which is Peach and Lily here in the US, the ingredients list is totally wrong, and it is not in the order that the ingredients actually come in. So just be warned again about ingredients lists, and always try to look for the actual ingredients list that is for the US distribution of this product. So when I got this product, it came in this box, which, very cute, right? Look at this box. But this box actually has a sticker, or not sticker, this box actually has a side that is all in English and has all of the ingredients in the proper, FDA approved order in English. So this is what I based my ingredients analysis on. Now for the first 7 ingredients here, we have water and glycerin, which you know the drill, water and a humectant. Next we have cyclopentasiloxane, which, well, I hope I'm getting pretty good at these chemical names. But this is basically a really thin form of silicone that makes it super spreadable and very, easy to use. Next is butylene glycol, which is another humectant. Then we have dimethicone, which is another form of silicone. And then we have pentylene glycol, which is another humectant. So you have a little occlusive humectant sandwich there. And then lastly, rounding out the top 7 is a Camellia sinensis leaf extract, which is green tea, green tea leaf extract. Now this is a very popular ingredient for its antioxidant properties, very commonly seen in a lot of especially Asian skincare products, and now more and more popular in the West as well. I am personally a big fan of the green tea leaf, even though it doesn't have as much of the scientific backing as do some other ingredients. It does have, you know, all of the history of Eastern medicine kind of backing it. So if we look at the rest of the ingredients list for this Cremorlab, we have a very long list featuring a lot of other nice extracts and oils like rose flower oil, yeast extract, witch hazel extract. So a long list. Near the bottom of this list there are some mild preservatives like sodium benzoate, and there's also denatured alcohol, which at the very end of a list of ingredients, alcohol is not a big deal. It's, you know, very minimal in there, so it's probably just to be used as a very minimal solvent or to, you know, change the formula in some way. So although this ingredients list is very rich in extracts, some people do find that to be a bit irritating for their skin, so just be warned that, you know, extract heavy products aren't necessarily just 100% great. Some people do have more sensitivities to this sort of stuff. I personally do not, and I quite enjoy it. Another one of the more little gimmicky things that this Cremorlab gel cream features is that the water in here is TEN water. And basically they claim that this isn't just regular water. In fact, it has 10 different forms of, you know, elements like selenium, calcium, magnesium, copper, etc. that are designed to make the water more absorptive. So it's supposed to help the other ingredients in this product to be absorbed into your skin. I don't know how reliable that is. I mean, yeah, that's definitely one of those things that seems more like a gimmick, but you know, it's kind of nice that their water isn't just straight up water. Aside from all of these extracts, which are more, you know, in the Eastern medicine rather than science-heavy sort of ingredients list, there aren't any other really science-based skincare positive ingredients like niacinamide or any of those heavily researched ingredients. So overall, I would say this is a 7 out of 10 when it comes to the ingredients. So next, when it comes to the sensory experience, this jar also comes with a little spatula. Hurrah! Now, although I rarely use spatulas myself, it's really nice that it comes with this. The jar is totally plastic, but it really feels like a very heavy-duty plastic. I was actually surprised when I felt it because it looked like it would be a lightweight plastic, but it's quite weighty. The lid also comes with a second protective layer, and honestly, the exterior is beautiful. I love the design that's on this lid. I also really like that box that I showed you earlier. As for the actual cream inside, it is very similar looking to the Hydroboost, but I would say it's ever so slightly more whipped in texture. The gel cream in here stands up more like beaten egg whites, you know, so just a little bit more whipped. As far as the application, it is again more or less the same, but I would say there is a very subtle difference here, which is as you are working it into the skin, it dissipates with a more wet feeling rather than a slippery silicone greasy feeling. It just feels really refreshing and like slightly cooling. Really, it feels like you've just sprayed your skin with one of those misters, and the way it finishes is just kind of slightly wet feeling. So it is, yeah, it's a really nice, unique feeling, I have to say. There's really just a very faint scent, like barely perceptible, probably from all of those extracts, and yeah, overall I just really enjoyed the sensory experience of this product. Only point deduction for being in a jar instead of a pump, so 9 out of 10. Lastly, as far as the moisturizing goes, this was again a stellar performer. It really kept my skin feeling moist and plump, just like the Hada Labo. I could see myself using this or the Hada Labo actually all through the winter, which is a good thing because I have so much of it. Maybe I would just add like a couple of drops of oils to give that extra boost of hydration. But yeah, overall I really enjoyed this product from a moisturizing standpoint, so 10 out of 10. That brings the total for the Cremorlab to 34 points. So far, Cremorlab is in the lead. Now next up is the Clinique Moisture Surge Extended Thirst Relief. I had actually never heard of this before. I probably have seen it in passing, but honestly it's never really been on my radar until my mom gave me this little sample when I was home recently in Toronto. So when it comes to this particular product for the value dimension, you can get this in many different sizes. Obviously this is just a free sample that I have here, but for the largest size, this is about $53 for 73 milliliters, which if we bring that down to 50 like the other ones that we've been comparing, that's roughly $35, $36 per 50 milliliter jar, which would be the same size as like the Neutrogena, for example. So that is, you know, quite a bit more expensive, obviously, you know, $20 versus $35. So I give this on the value side a 5 out of 10. When it comes to ingredients, the list is water, dimethicone, butylene glycol are the first three. So that's again water, a silicone, and a humectant. Moving right along, the next is trisiloxane, which has some anti-foaming qualities and is also an emollient. Next is glycerin, which is again a humectant, and rounding out the top 7, we have a couple of different extracts. We have a birch bark extract and a lady's thistle extract. So birch bark is apparently anti-inflammatory and antimicrobial. The lady's thistle is skin soothing and antioxidant rich. So great extracts, and yeah, nice little top 7 for you. The rest of the ingredients feature some other interesting ones. So Saccharomyces lysate extract is actually in here, and that's basically what is the star ingredient in the SK2 products. There's also caffeine, which has, you know, some anti-puffing capabilities, and some peptides, hyaluronic acid. Yeah, so not too bad when it comes to kind of skincare positive ingredients. Phenoxyethanol is the preservative in here, but this is at the very, very bottom of the list, unlike the Hydroboost, which had it as the 7th ingredient. I still think that's really strange. So since the phenoxyethanol is near the bottom, that's, you know, even better. Overall, I am pretty impressed with this this formula list. It sounds like it has a nice mix of, you know, traditional Western and some Eastern ingredients in here. So I would say overall a score of 8 out of 10. When it comes to the sensory experience, I only have this little free sample, so I don't have the full-size jar to compare this to, but you know, the jar looks to be a nice glass jar with a little silver lid rather than this pink lid that's on mine. But it doesn't have, at least in my little sample, it doesn't have a second protective layer. I don't know about the full-size jar. I'd guess it would have it. But it is a cute little pink package, and I quite like it. I also like the color of the actual gel cream. It's that, you know, hint of pink. And other than that, there's no real difference between how this looks versus the Hydroboost. So there's no scent, and this formula is totally fragrance free. As far as the application, it is very similar to everything else, but whereas the Hydroboost and Hada Labo had a slightly greasy feel and the Cremorlab had a slightly wet feel, this one goes on with an almost a matte feel and finish. So if you like a more matte finish and you're looking for a water gel that's truly dry and has no greasiness whatsoever, this matte finish could be really appealing to you. You know, I really enjoyed the sensory experience overall. I would say the packaging is not nearly as cute as the Cremorlab, and I personally prefer the slightly wet finish to this matte finish, so I would give this an 8 out of 10. On a moisturizing perspective, this is great. 10 out of 10 again. Could use this in the winter. Just add a couple of drops of oils and I think it would be a nice hydrating moisturizer. In total, that brings us to 31 points for the Clinique. Last up is the Belif True Cream Aqua Bomb. This one seems to be very popular in the YouTube audience, and obviously I just felt like no review of water gel creams could be complete without this. I went and got the smaller size. This is just the smaller size at 22 milliliters, I believe. I can't seem to find it on here, but it's the smaller size of it, and they do have a version of this jar that is 1.7 ounces like everything else. So for value, for that 1.7 ounce jar, which is again 50 milliliters roughly, it is $38, which is about the same price but a little bit more expensive than the Clinique, and 2x the cost of all the other ones that I've talked about today. So from a value perspective, this is 5 out of 10, just like Clinique. On to the ingredients. Water is again first as usual. Next is dipropylene glycol, which is a solvent and a humectant. Next our fave humectant, glycerin, is in here, and followed by methotrimethicone, which is another form of silicone. And then we have denatured alcohol, which is really surprising because this is the 4th ingredient in a moisturizer. Now, don't get me wrong, denatured alcohol, like I said, especially if it's at the bottom of a list or in sunscreen, is actually very common because you need the alcohol to kind of dissolve some of those sunscreen ingredients. But for alcohol to be up here in the top 5, no less, of a moisturizer is truly a little bit surprising and shocking to me. I can only imagine that this is to get the matte finish, which I'll talk about later, that's in this product. But yeah, it's a little bit concerning to have alcohol, which is a drying agent, that up high in a moisturizer. Rounding out the top 7, then we have 2 more types of silicones, dimethicone and that cyclopentasiloxane, which we saw as well in the Cremorlab. The rest of the ingredients list is super long. It is similar to the Cremorlab in that you see a lot of different extracts with different skin benefits. So popular ones that's in Western skincare, we have some ceramides, shea butter, squalane, panthenol. I will note there are also a lot of fragrant ingredients in here, and actually there is added fragrance. That is potentially alarming for some of you. Interestingly, I don't believe there are any preservatives in this formula, or at least none that I could see being a preservative exclusively, so I found that kind of interesting. And yeah, I would say because of that denatured alcohol right up in the top 5, I am again very surprised by this for a moisturizer, so I'm gonna have to give this a 5 out of 10. And also again, all of those fragrances, that can be very annoying to people, both in the actual scent itself and also in that a lot of people are very sensitive to fragrance. So 5 out of 10 for the Belif, I'm sorry. When it comes to sensory experience, I purchased this jar again in the smaller size, but I believe it is pretty much identical to the 50 milliliter jar. So it's a very nice looking jar, I have to say. It's very modern, you know, a unique lid shape. I appreciate that kind of design innovation. There is also a second protective layer, and visually the actual cream gel inside is very similar to the Hydroboost, except it also has a very slight tint like the Clinique, which is pink. This one is tinted blue. It's a very pretty baby blue, and I really do like all of this visually, I have to admit. So no surprise, there is definitely a fragrance with this particular formula, and it's nice. It smells very fresh, but again, fragrance can be a killer for a lot of people, so just be aware of that. As for the application, this is very similar to the Clinique and maybe just a little even more matte than Clinique, which is unsurprising given the alcohol in here. It does feel cooling to apply, so I can see why a lot of people like it, and you know, again, that matte texture is very appealing. I would say overall, the feel is very similar to Clinique. If you were to blind test me on these two, I probably couldn't tell you which is which, except for the fact that this has a very distinct smell. So I would say overall, I enjoy this because the packaging is cuter a little bit more than the Clinique, and so I'd give this an 8.5 out of 10 for the sensory experience. When it comes to the final moisturizing experience here, I would say this is very similar to Hydroboost, so maybe just a little bit less moisturizing than everything else. I didn't find it to be especially drying, even though there is that alcohol in there, and you know, that might just be because it's the summer months, it's humid, and my skin doesn't need a lot. So I would give this a 9 out of 10. That brings the total for Belif to 27.5, which is the lowest score of all of them, which I was honestly very surprised by as I was doing my assessment. Final ranking then is Cremorlab coming in the top, followed by Hada, Labo, then Clinique, and then Hydroboost, with Belif coming in 5th place out of these 5 ones that I have tested. So for those of you that are currently using and enjoying the Belif, I have to say, given what I know about the ingredients, I think you should really give the Clinique Moisture Surge Extended Relief a try. They are very similar. They both have a nice matte finish, but the Clinique, honestly, I think is a better product, a better formula. So I would encourage you to give that a test if you do currently use the Belif. For those of us who don't require as much the, you know, clear matte kind of finish that the Belif and Clinique offer, I really recommend the Cremorlab. This is my personal favorite of all of these 5, and it's also incredibly a great value. And yeah, I absolutely love it. Love the packaging. It could be a really nice gift, I think, and just really unique, and I just love the simplicity of it. So good job, Cremorlab. I'm going to be looking into this as a brand more generally now from now on. So that is the end of my review of these 5 gel moisturizers. I think this video is probably really freaking long, but I hope you enjoyed that and really found some useful information on all of this stuff. So with that said, I will see you guys next time, and don't forget to like this video if you want to see more stuff like this, and also leave me comments and subscribe to my channel. Alright guys, that's it for me. I will see you very soon. Bye!